The following presentation in this video are personal viewpoints of the speaker and do not reflect official policy or views of the Department of Defense or any of the U.S. military services. Welcome to Shoot, Move, Communicate, where we provide video content for military members to be educated on how to be fit for the fight in life. In other words, we provide content for service members on how to physically, mentally, and spiritually be ready for the violence of combat and for tackling the obstacles of life. Our video content is designed to be used ideally in small unit discussion in conjunction with physical fitness and tactical training for maximum effectiveness. I'm Chris Reardon, an active duty U.S. Marine, and today we're presenting on ethical and moral principles related to the employment of deadly force. This is arguably one of the most critical ethical topics related to military service, so you won't want to miss on this episode. So stick around. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. A solemn oath, one that only takes less than a minute to say out loud, and yet is one that has life and death implications for the military personnel sworn by it. Military service, whether it be in a support role or frontline combat unit, is by its nature designed to deter, confront, and ultimately defeat national enemies with force, up to and most certainly the use of deadly force. This principle is a critical one that all military members must remember is the ultimate aim of their duties. They must be prepared at all times to answer the call, especially to go down range and engage in a two-way rifle range, where theirs, their fellow brothers and sisters in arms, and other lives are at stake. Furthermore, they must be ready and willing to pull triggers ranging from a 9mm Beretta to a nuclear warhead switch at the moment of truth. A great quote I found that depicts this truth is as follows: "Are you ready to kill another human being? If you have not made spiritual peace in advance with your moral decision to take another life to save your own life or those around you, then you may find it difficult to make the decision when time is of the essence." Dr. Ignatius Piazza, the founder of Front Sight Firearms Training Institute. There are many underlying ethical and moral theories to help the warrior grasp how this grave responsibility is to be undertaken. For today, however, we will primarily break down, in particular for U.S. service members, the Department of Defense Order 5210.56, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Instruction 3121.01 Bravo, and the Law of Armed Conflict regarding the types of threats when deadly force is authorized at high level of self-defense principles. In future videos, we'll discuss other considerations of the employment of deadly force in military operations. So first off, we need to make very clear that deadly force is justified only when there is a reasonable belief that the subject of such force poses an imminent threat of death or serious bodily harm to a person, others, or under the circumstances which we will touch on in this lesson. It should be understood an adversary may pose an imminent danger even if he or she is not at that very moment pointing a weapon at a person. A level of certainty means that something is ready to happen and is more likely tied to circumstances rather than a fixed period of time. For example, he or she has a weapon within reach, is running for cover, carrying a weapon, or is running to a place where a military member has reason to believe a weapon is available. That being said, there is a paramount value of all human life. If less than deadly force could reasonably be expected to accomplish the same result without unreasonably increasing the danger to other military personnel or others, then it should be used. Something that should be noted here is that as an individual citizen, you have the right to self-defense in accordance with appropriate laws, but you are not authorized to retaliate. For example, if I'm allowed to maintain in my home or on my person a firearm and a criminal tries to seriously harm or kill myself, family members, or those in the immediate vicinity, then I would be allowed to use deadly force. However, though, let's say I came home to find out my family member was injured or even killed by a criminal. It would be unlawful to find the person and kill or injure myself once the immediate threat is over. The appropriate response would be to get the appropriate authorities involved who have the right and obligation to carry out justice against such individuals. The same holds true for national enemies. Just because the U.S. has declared war on terrorism does not give the individual service member or even a lone unit leader the right to employ deadly or even less than deadly force against enemies of the state without proper authority and orders. Now that we've outlined a basic understanding of when deadly force is appropriate, let's talk about the three types of threat for which deadly force may be needed. These threats are categories with the terms hostile force, hostile act, and hostile intent. Let's elaborate on these three terms. Hostile force. This is any civilian, paramilitary, or military force or terrorist that has been declared hostile by appropriate government authority. An example of this would be the German army during World War II or the Taliban in Afghanistan. Hostile act. This is when an attack or other use of force against oneself, fellow unit members, the nation, U.S. military forces, and/or U.S. designated persons or property has occurred. This includes force used directly to preclude or impede the mission and/or duties of U.S. forces, including the recovery of government personnel or vital government property. An example of this would be an individual without a uniform who's opened up fire on your unit during normal patrolling operations. Hostile intent. This is similar to hostile act, with the only difference being that the threat of imminent force is foreseen, but an actual hostile act has not occurred. An example would be an adversary pointing a weapon at your unit's position. Now that we've covered the three basic type of threat categories a military member will have, we must then address 5 basic conditions in which military members may find themselves having to employ force. They are as follows. Number 1, self-defense. 2, the attack on legitimate military targets as well as defending others. Number 3, defending infrastructure and assets vital to national security. Number 4, protection of inherently dangerous property. Number 5, preventing the escape of a dangerous prisoner. In summary, military members employ deadly force against the 3 types of threats: hostile force, hostile act, and hostile intent. They employ deadly force in self-defense scenarios and those deemed to be of legitimate military nature as authorized by competent authority, which we previously outlined. In the next upcoming video, we will be covering the category of self-defense as we continue to train military operators to be fit for the fight in life, namely physically, mentally, and spiritually prepared for the violence of combat. Until then, remember, land of the free because of the brave.